Wow, this is such a delicate little flower of a camera. It's about the 50th time I try and start it, but anyway, velcroing you into position roughly. I know it's a bit tilted, but anyway. Look, here we are. Got to get moving. I've got 4 hours to save the universe. 4 hours to do this Chapman ML3, and this is Luke's third of Luke's guitars. Just getting a few bits off the workbench there. Third of Luke's guitars, and you know, it's a nice thing. It has a couple of things that he wants doing, and he wants some surrounds fitted to the pickups here. Although they stand out of the directly on the body, we could potentially could we fit them as hanging? Possibly, possibly not. But either which way, he wants the surrounds on there. They're just flat surrounds, so they look it looks a little bit less unfinished, I think. The other thing is, as it comes, this guitar has a nut slot on the E, which is too low, and it's sitaring already. Now I don't know if it came like that, but that's how it is. Third of Luke's guitars. Just getting a few bits off the pair it. So the miracle of they call the thing Amazon doofer. I Monday delivery of a Tusk with things that is great doing. Do a straight on place on that nut. So that's a priority. Replace the nut and then select a really nice low action and that going. And if it needs fret leveling, then we'll level it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that. So the two other things that Luke wants doing on the which way, he wants surrounds on the pick we've got in the house, and the other thing is he's put his own stick-on marker, dot markers here, and he wants to come series of markers on here, and conveniently this box is exactly 10. These are actually, they're not perfectly in position, but they're not totally miles off. But either which way, that repair this, it's not actually a miracle. It's impossible to do. It's, believe it or not, it's a handheld thing, doing a very careful and sun-filled job. So I've got the 10 pearl markers, abalone. So that's a pro. They're very similar, and they would look very nice on this, suit it perfectly well. So anyway, this guitar has got some wear on it, and it's in a similar pattern of wear to the previous guitar. The thing I'm showing that I think, not that I know his playing technique, but I think he does a lot of lead guitar work. He's the middle of the guitar neck, which is sort of characteristic of a professional player. This takes, I'd argue. So yeah, perfect. As of yet, there's no not duplicate. This guitar hasn't come with a high first fret action like some of the other guitars that I've seen from Chapman. And I have to say this all times over. People say to me, "Our Chapman guitar is unusually tad in that respect." It may seem that way, and there are those statistical biases that just because I've seen 3, 4 or 5 of them, I can't remember now. This doesn't mean that there are any more than any other brand that come with crappy first fret actions. It just means that once I've done one and put a video on YouTube, then obviously I'm disproportionately likely to attract people who have that problem and want it correcting. So the fact that I've seen 4 or 5, statistically from my side, it look like there are more of those in the world, but actually you've got to factor in the YouTube thing. So I'm not trying to say that Rob Fret guitars are crap, which I'm not. It just so happens you pick out what I think fixes this problem, you will get you'll get a statistical bias towards that, which is the nature of the you get on YouTube. So anyway, this needs to get going because I'm going to run out of time. Otherwise, everything about this guitar plays beautifully. Just looking at this works. I'm not sure if we can use those pickup surrounds in the correct lifting fashion. I've not done that before, and I know that predominantly what Luke I'm just concerned about is just the look of it. So this guitar may just have to do a cosmetic thing, but I will have a look while I'm doing it. We'll have a look and see if it actually is doable as a translating it from a fixed pickup, which is attached into one that the surround does the lifting work. So we have a black Tusk nut which absolutely duplicate this one 100% spot on, which is great, because we're going to need to do it. One of the options would have been to have repaired this ultra low first fret of action down here, but I know that you don't really want to be doing that. It's not the ideal situation. There was a little repair down here that was doable, fixable, and actually he's repaired a little the wood's been compressed slightly, and he's repaired it with marker pen, which, given the transparent black finish of this car, actually probably the best solution of the lot. I wouldn't want to try and build that up or do anything to it, really, because the risk is creating right area to repair in order to take out that little repair. So I'm just looking at, while I'm at it, I'm just looking at this, the dot markers. I won't do full lecture. I'm just looking at where he's got the position already done, whether they're good start points for drilling. We've got 6mm dot markers here, and they do have to go down, not a fair bit, but they do have to, you have to go down a couple of millimeters to get the pressed. And the markers themselves are actually about 1.5 millimeters thick, and you have to go down below that to get them to sit in properly. So it's well within the thickness of the fingerboard. These are not precise positionings, these sticky markers, so they're not really the best guide, but I use them at the moment. I could use the strings as a position in marker point. So what I'll do for that, if I not, is change the eyeballs. I don't want to spend drilling too much time preparing my this. Also got a torchlight here, which just forget I was using it earlier on to give me extra light, but it's not actually ideal. Shine down on me. Okay, so it's not a bad. I won't do it with this marker pen. I'll do it with a pencil. It's not bad. Not bad positioning that he's already got. Because using this as a starting point. That's central, off slightly north of. So that start in the midpoint would be more like there. I certainly would for a 6mm dot. This one's off centre, right here, long wide, lengthwise. So that 6mm dot would have a centre there. I don't know how well that I can see that. This one is pretty much spot on to the left, so we'll go a bit to the right of centre on there. Just visually eyeball it. A bit greasy, obviously. Could start played. Is very close to the centre. These have got extra dots on them. Sometimes you could try doing things with rulers, but when you're down, when the ruler is raised above something, it doesn't really give an accurate reading. So in some ways, it's where the kind of the eyeball comes in. It's almost more accurate to use your eye. Okay, so I've got some points marked down here, and if I were to put a ruler across this now, they should be extra strong, extra long thing. You should all line up on down a line of, which amazingly, if I can make the ruler in one place, so I'm in the mood, I can draw almost an extra line down these. just on the top of the sticky markers basically. That looks really good on there, just so we can. So for some we can also here run over a little bit onto the fingerboard, but that's fine. If I it comes off, just obviously it goes off centre. Just two little ones, and I'm just going to visually confirm that centre should of the left fret. There you go. Okay. Oh, amazing. Obviously, I'm not going to go near that if I can. For the time being, just be sure. And obviously, we have the strings off for that to get in there and drill, mark the centre points of each of these. So that's obviously a destructive process. Once we start that, we have there's no backing out. We've got to follow through. Which is always a scary thing, whether you've done no times or a million times. Well, I treat it as scary each time. Okay, so with this, normally I would set a chosen. Well, I'll go through the process of setting the action. If I can find my Allen key. Okay, so now strangely vanished. Pile of bitterness now. We'll set the action we want down here, and then once we've got that, then I'll knock off the nut, and we'll have to replace the nut and then treat that from scratch if you like. Process stove down again. We have get the correct height of the first fret. So we'll pick out the correct thing. Now currently we've got. Okay, I'll use my close-up specs for this. A bit steamy today. Okay, we've currently got 0.5. Actually, it's more than that. It's about 1.7 on the top E and to 1.5 pile on the bottom E. And I know that Luke's had the bottom E cranked up because of the button. So he's had to been forced to notch it up to remove the buzzing, which of course as we go down is going to get even worse. Okay, so there we have just about 1 millimetre. I should tolerate that. We're going to go for a little bit on this top end. The base note, I should say the base E. And let's see what we get. So that's, and that's where a torch might be handy. Oh yeah, I think so anyway. Okay, 1.2 on the base E there, 1.5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have the grab now because it's changed. I'm just going to set a visual radius over the top of this now. And I'll go back and check it physically. Top end. But I'm basically looking to put all of these strings across woods in a. I'm going to say doing it visually. I want to get them all down to a radius curve, and the way I can judge that is by using light to just read off the height. And you can use a radius guide if it's fish. I go by measuring the thing. I want to reduce as we go across. That's too low. To 1, just under 1. Too low on the G. Too low on the G. Up a bit on the G. And a little bit on the that one, and a little bit on the E. So we have exactly one. We have curve, actually more than one. We have. Let's get this light on it. So Just, yeah, we have 1.5. No, just on actually. I think a bit more on G. Very small amounts. And 1. D is 1.1. A is hard to read. A is 1, and E is about the same. So it hasn't. Let's have a feel. Let's get it in tune. Oh, taking away the guitar I was using. So. A bit more. Okay, so the first thing you know is that it doesn't like the action being that low because of the first is straight to the nut slot is on the top E, but guitar. Hello, turban lady. Oh, you're right. Right. Vital supplies of tea.
Tea? No way to put it.
Yeah. Just getting ready to do this thing.
Spicy, isn't it?
It's a bit, but I've chosen a very low action. But it should, I think, it should work. And the thing that a bit of light fret leveling will do for this is remove these grooves from wear, which have built up. So that's it'll just improve the accuracy of the notes, and it will also take away those little bumps. So that's the first bit to get on with. So I've got a limited number of hours, and I've got a few big jobs to do.
Pressure.
Yeah, I'm not panicking or anything.
See you later.
Okay then. Well, we have a case of zero, what do you want to call it? Relief. Wow. One very stiff. Leave it move for, I'll keep these on for a second. Yeah, I just put I've chosen the thing on cap. I want to check the relief, and there's almost none, which makes playing the notes harder. It's an interesting subject. A lot of people seem to, I don't know, when you look around you seem to find a lot of people talk about having a perfectly straight neck, and it's sort of, it sounds ideal, but actually the neck requires, from all I've in case of the neck requires a bit of space in the middle, a little bit of room for the strings to move, because they move more at their centre point than they do at the end points. And the point is here is if you've got a very high action, then it's immaterial because there's plenty of room. The lower your action at both ends, the more likely it is that the string's going to hit the frets in the middle when it's describing this big movement. So you thought about that kind of skipping rope when you were a kid, and the middle makes this big circle and the ends just go a tiny amount. And it's a bit like that with the string. And if it's a totally flat neck with no relief, and you've got low action, then this thing is going to hit these strings are going to hit the frets very quickly. So the rule is you seem to need a bit of neck relief, which is why the manufacturers give value for how much relief there should be in the neck. Interestingly, I'm just wondering here. Okay, this is what I'm seeing. This is a compound radius. That's the thing I'm noticing. I have a feeling that is a compound radius. And that's interesting. That's an interesting thing. So it means it's probably. I could look online in a minute, but I'll do it off so I don't make the phone interfere with the thing. But interestingly, if I've lost a dot marker already. Oh hell! Okay, I know where it's coming from. Yeah. And if I was going to say like that. Okay, so when you just think about it, does it affect it when you look at? You're looking at. If you've got a very radius here and the radius in the middle is more curved, what are you going to see in terms of is matching relief and radius together. So what I'm seeing here is that the gap, when I hold down the first fret with the capo and I hold it, seeing that there's a little gap there and there's almost no gap there, there's a little gap there. I'm just trying to work out whether the compound radius would affect what I see here in terms of relief, but I don't think it would actually, not significantly. That thing. Anyway, just sorry, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole. So there's a little bit of relief in it, so I don't make it minuscule. I guess what I was saying is there's almost none there, but there's a bit more in the middle point. And how would that be the case? How could that possibly be the case? If that was rounder and it was rounder but flatter in the middle, rounder at the end, that would sort of make sense. That's the bit that's a little bit hard to get my head around, why that distance seems a little bit bigger than that distance. Look at that. Maybe it's just an optical illusion and I'm getting worried of hearing nothing. Very, very small amounts of dill. So I'm just going to dial a little bit more in using the beautiful end radius to get and truss rod adjuster. Thank you, Chapman Guitars. I mean that's nice to have that easy little truss rod compared to some things. I'm just looking at the frets here. These are quite worn. In different places, there's quite a lot of places where flattened off a bit. So a fret level is going to, a mild fret level is going to tidy that up from where it is. There's a little bit of, including some of the dents down here. So it's quite still. So this it's a very direct or positive truss rod adjuster because how. I'm trying to slack it off so that it gives me a little bit more relief, and I don't know, I sort of let it just a while to catch up. There is some relief there, which is going to be fine, but I don't want it to be too much. It depends on how much it's going to do over time. Some guitars seem to respond instantly, and some take longer than others. Right, just put that there still. Okay, so having set playing action, now I've got to take care of the nut. And this is going to require taking off the strings. I don't know what you can see here. I haven't quite worked out this new stand business. So yeah, easing the nut off, scary thing, because it's a nice, really nice join here. But it has to get them off. It's got slightly back to front, or slightly very back to front, off a bit styled headstock, which makes accessing the tuners a bit more fiddly. Now for this guitar we've got a set high some set down strings, 9s through to 10 bottom or something like that. So we'll cut the slots for that. But as always I cut them deliberately above the gauge of strings a certain amount because I will move Secondly, I want them to be enough to go up, you know, for the owner to go above the that gauge if they want to. Now with this, I want to keep it strong because I want to use them for the drilling part of it, though, which do want to be out of the way, so I can get to this nut and do it nicely and easily. So I'm going to take off or slack them off as much as I can to put them out of the way. Ideally, you might tie them with a bit of or something. Very long wire, just to move them out of the way. Is that a simple way of doing it? Just to thread it head here a bit, just giving it a pull. I think that will do. For the hybrid, easy to undo, easy to do up, easy to undo if I haven't got this stupid thing in the way. How to do something with one hand tied behind your back. Right, we'll need to move this along because we will run out of time. Right, here we go. A bow, a pretty bow to hold it in place. Okay, that's good. It gives me room. I want the doofer. Now I'm going to use Chris. I forgot his name. Chris Barker, of course, Chris Barker. Chris Barker. I'm going to use his. I'm not sure I use this hammer, but I'll try it first. And we have to snap off that nut, and thankfully it comes off beautifully simply. It's only got the lightest glue fixing it down, and then we can replace it straight away. It's so nice that it's got a clean joint. We'll replace it straight away with another one. Now, question here is, just before I do it, let's look at what we've got here, what the gap is above the fingerboard, because if this thing isn't any higher, right, we're going to end up with the same problem. So I guess, given that it's a clean joint, I don't have to do any major work there. I'm going to take this string off again because I want the strings back for a minute. Stupid knot in it, Samuel. Right, so let me just put this on and shut this back on for a minute. It may be, I mean, the tolerances or the amounts are so tiny, it's hardly going to make any difference, or it's going to make very little difference. But what I'm seeing here is the problem that you've got is the original slot. This confirms the good nut. What they've done in the factory is they've cut the slot too low to trim this doofer. Either use this one or we'll use the new one since Luke's will be paying for it, but let's put a new one in. But the point I'm making here is that the slot is cut too deep. So a brand new nut in here doesn't work. It's too low already. It comes off, which explains why it was like that when you got it. So they've miscut it at the factory, and it does require so what I'm going to do, I'm going to a very thin plastic shim quickly, get this on the road, because we need to get this going. Now for this amount, the tolerance or the amount is absolutely minuscule, and a very thin shim will do. I'm going to use black plastic so that it's, we've got the same, it looks the same and it has the same edge. Given that it's a square edge, I'm going to take the mark up. I'm just going to line this up physically and draw against it. I'm going to cut this in smaller first. Maybe so the digging was such a big thing. So this is about 3/4 mil. It's different here, and that's going to be more than enough. This is shim this up to the right height. But it's a manufacturing problem, so I can see now why this would have been like that from the very start for it. It's a shame really, because it's just there is that the C error and here it's too low. That when you okay, a shim just up, and that's pretty good. I'm going to cut plastic slightly wider on one edge, show on the road, file down. For this, stick it to it. Yeah, I mean you can what you can do is stick it to it and file it as a single thing. In fact, I'll just do that. Stick it, clamp it, file it. Stick it, clamp it, file it. Clamp, small clamp. Sorry about the dragging here, but this is what you get when you have to do eye repairs. So this is a brand new nut. Might as well, because we can set everything again from scratch, and it's a nice fresh start. Although what I'm saying is, as you can see from the thing, is it technically didn't need it. It's not the nut itself that's the problem. Let's just line this up the other way. So come on. And that bit of overhang. Yes, right. I'm just going to clamp this for a minute or two, so that we can just leave it be. That can see me. But let's do it that way. That won't really make much difference because that's at the point of the nut. Okay. Leave that there. Right, get that out of the way. One side, we'll need that again in a minute. Okay, so spare nut. This isn't going to be any good to use, so I could shim it as well, and you can have that back as a spare, because it's always going to be too short, too low. For that guitar, stick it, might as well have I can do a spare one and file it as a single out of the deal. Okay, so I'm just going to draw around it again and cut to the inside of the marker pen. This is sorry, boring video, I know. I want to be further along in this job than I currently am. Let's see, I'm going a bit south. Okay, well I'm just going to blob glue. Yeah, do the same, clamp it, put it off to one side, and I'll come back to it. It'll be a luxury tweak later on, but I don't want to mistake it for the piece we're going to use. Right, let me just stick. Clamping. Just stay again and the other way. I'll drink tea. My last cup of tea got a bunch of flies in it for some reason. Well, okay, get rid of this for another time. Dead handy having some hard plastic for my shims. And also having a known height, so you can be confident the size that you're using and how much it's going to increase the action. So if I know that the foot fret action was just about sitaring, then I know that now it's going to be about 0.8 of a millimetre above the fret. Okay, this is a very dirty fingerboard. Now if I'm going to I'm not going to clean this yet, I'm going to do all that later. Because before I clean, I've got to punch very lightly a centre point hole for this for these dot markers. So that's going to be the commit luxury go tweak the point. What I do need to do is to get this nut into place and get it filed down and in place as quickly as possible. Now luckily I have my old what's it here close to hand. The name of the thing being rice. Old age, forget the names of everything. Hopefully I can just let me shave this down fairly quickly if I can find the object I'm looking for amongst all of this junk. It's trying to come off one end, not a lot of glue there, so it's tricky. Files don't work sometimes as well as sandpaper do, so I'm just going to run this on a bit of sandpaper. And it's rewarded me with coming off. So much for the super glue. Damn it. How annoying. How absolutely annoying. Right, back to square one. There is I've got some wonderful plastic bonding stuff good for PVC. I don't know if it will work for this, but I used it at the drain the other day, close to. So I'm just trying to screen these off and get it back into place. Hopefully, shave this down. Knife. Got. Where's the jade gone? Well, this. Oh yeah, right there. Okay, what I can do is instead of tricking it this time, if I'm going to shape it now, then what I'll do is I'll put that on the guitar in place, and then we'll sandpaper the lead strings to do the clamping, if you like. Okay, we are in there. We'll take this excess bit of sand, bit of glue off the bottom of this, which is already on there, because I don't want that messing it up to begin with. Right. And go on with a little bit of glue. Okay, so there we get feel of our bits and pieces. Yeah, there's no ways around it, I'm afraid. It obviously doesn't make quite as perfect a thing as it did before. That's not anything I can do about that, unfortunately. That is the piece of the original cut in the factory. There's no, we can't build it up with any. I mean, we could use some sort of bizarre, I don't know, liquid welding stuff or something and try and physically build up that part of the next two. But you still have to flatten it again, so I think I'd just rather use I'm just going to like this and work a bit of glue, that shim downwards from the top, not downwards from the top, which you have to do anyway, but now this is always a flip thing because you put strings on there, tend to pull the nut one way or another, so you have to kind of load them equally if you can, whilst holding the thing where you force it. Okay, do a to make that, get that dead position, so we've got the strings exactly central, and start with a D and a V to load the middle of it. Okay, we are dead central position. We've got plenty of room either side of everything. A's and B's. Come on, B. Top E, low E. Right. This will just sit tight now. String. Get that. Will just roughly in tune for the time being, and that's busy setting the nut. As I said, there's no alternative, I'm afraid, but to have the shim in this situation, and that is unfortunately the price of. In fact, I can actually just about see it now. The drop off on the E side, it's quite pronounced. And technically, in some ways, we might have wanted an angled shim, but it's kind of impossible to make with a thin piece of plastic. We cut further down on the base side, but I think I can see it's quite a big difference. So what I'd rather do is do it this way, which is use the complete nut and work the slots down to the right place, and don't worry about what the top of the nut is doing. We're basically covering up for the slant on the cut that's been done on the neck, and the slant goes that way basically. Hence the original nut was workily. Okay, now we've got loads of height there, and once this glues into place, and we could even clamp it a bit if we wanted to, just to help it along its way. Got a sort of pad here underneath, just to see it drop, just to relieve the thing. Okay, that's all good. Right, hold that for a sec. Okay, so we're getting ready, we're nearly there for the next bit. Interestingly, this is so maybe to do with the suit this way. We'll have used slightly buzzy sound. I don't know why that is. It's not actually sitting frets, so it may be to do with the nut slot. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Right there. Once this, so I'm going to go in the house and put the surrounds for this for in a minute. I'll stop for a sec and see you in a moment. Right. Okay. So let's get on with getting this nut set to the right heights for this guitar, and I'm going to take off the top two strings and work outwards from the G to the top E, and then I'll go back down to the lower strings afterwards. So I'm going to set this for 0.3 of a millimetre, not with the imperial side I'm not, which is the kind of working action I like to aim for, and need to keep it as tight as possible, and this is going to be with the G, which I've chosen as a 17, which is slightly bigger than the one I'm aiming for. So I'm just going to start cutting nicely into this here tusk nut. My favourite substance. Take a cut, I have to say. Top two. I find it gets a little bit shaggy and unpredictable at times. Which is go. Cutting with this 17, which in fact I can't remember what the size is. It's actually above anyway. So, it's still, what you notice is that when you put it into the slot on the new nut, the given slot is way bigger here. So there is a lot of room above the gauge that you choose for when you nut. So it's kind of built to regulate a range of sizes up to the largest gauge likely to be used. Now what I don't like about this tusk is now already binding a bit on this. Unlike bone just blows out of the way and keeps going, and I don't really actually trust this tusk stuff to tell me what's happening. I'll get my spray can ready so I can, wherever possible, blow out the thing would work. Blow out as much of the dust as possible. But it's already feeling sticky, which is not what it's supposed to do if you're cutting with a slot saw, because it's now fairly predict a bit cut and bone grabbing at the bottom of its slot. So it isn't stuffed cutting the way I'd like. Break. Patient and persevere. I also see it cutting anything, really. Which is supposed to do. Trust we'll get there. Because it's critical, and that's the thing, there's nothing more important than getting this right on the end of guitar, which is a bit bad, but it is true. Which is why when in the first place with this slot that's cut, it condemned you to a guitar that doesn't play properly. Cutting. See, with bone, you'd be seeing bone dust accumulating very, very clearly, showing you what you're doing. This doesn't. You wouldn't even know you're cutting it at this rate, and I'm not even sure I am. It's just bouncing off. Just have to. But we'll get there. Anyway, this is what we do, and it takes a long time, and it's not quick. I'm not close now. Just on the mark. I don't like this. I really don't like it. It's unpredictable. It's soft and, as I say, shaggy. Yeah? You think you've got there, and then you put the thing in and you put a tiny bit more tension on it, and because it's soft and shaggy, it sinks even further. No longer what you thought it was. So, not great. So now I'm using a 13 for this next one, and again, this is quite some way down, so I could be here for a while, and then sort of expect it to start binding and gripping and making the cutting difficult. The thing, not a fan of tusk, soft, you bone any day. Anyone's worried about wasn't tusk. I mean, sorry, why anybody doesn't want bone. Okay, so you can't get black bone very easily. This is true. When you're at a very thin cut, a thin gauge difficult. It's very tricky, and it's incredibly easy to get this wrong. Particularly if you're cutting away down into this thing. But the point is, you can't just file away at the bottom and hope to end up with a nut that sits perfectly in position. So you get your first fret right. There's no triggering it from the base upwards, so you really have no choice but to cut downwards, which means that whatever the condition or whatever the height of the nut that you begin with, you have to cut. That's not even cutting anything. That's the wrong side. You have to downwards until you reach the cutting the height you want, and that can be, a matter of a millimetre or two if the nut's pretty high to begin with. Now I'm doing it full tension here. I'm first trying to keep the string under no tension so that I don't get caught out with this, because you really have, if these catch up out this tusk, it's an expensive restart. But as you can see, it cut downward has this stickiness about it now, which is just hard to work with. And also found means that when you do get the thing to sit where you want it, chances are you get lines on the string as well, which is not that good. Don't like it. Don't like it. Just as I don't like tunematic bridges, I do not like this about it as a material. Certainly not as a material to work in this fashion. I mean, you can see it gripping the blade in a way that bone just doesn't. And I have no confidence that this string is sitting away at the bottom, which it should be. Good. It's easy when you get to the thicker ones, but ones, I think it is getting there, but it's taking it sweet. It doesn't give you the feedback that bone does. And you can see no. Now the angle has to just be backwards somewhat, and that can be the bit sometimes that catches you out. If you change the angle drastically, you get to then you can find yourself suddenly cutting the front of the slot down where you didn't expect to drop the height so quickly. You can suddenly end up on the fret. You're almost there. It's going to get even harder on the last one, of course. It's one of the reasons why I've often carried on the same gauge for the B as for the A. And because I just don't want to get caught with the sort of sticky. You can slot matter. So I can see the difference. Hello. Hello. I can see the difference here just in the shape of fret. I hate tusk. Did I ever tell you I hate tusk as a material? I hate it as much as I hate tunematic bridges. Can I help you?
Yeah.
What?
I'm going to the shop.
Oh.
I haven't driven for weeks. That's strange.
Since your moon. Well, before your honeymoon. So I can see. Right, stopping there. I do not like this substance at all. I have to do the top E now. Just in the tusk.
Don't you like that stuff or something?
I don't like tusk. I don't like tusk, and I don't like tunematic bridges. This was. Hey, now that's the downside, by the way, of having spongy stuff. That happens. It's
What
never happened.
happened? Where's it?
It sinks in and falls
You know
over.
what you need on the bottom there, don't you?
I need not to have this soft
You
underlay.
need some Velcro.
I need to have underlay.
Right, I'm going.
Okay.
Is there anything
No.
in particular?
Use anything, whatever. Okay. Can you close the back door so that damn cat doesn't get in? Thank you. Now that sounds like a good cut going on there. Like, hey, but 11 is a bit too close to 9 in my world. And it wouldn't surprise me to end up with binding at that sort of size. As I say, the sponginess, the essential sponginess of tusk makes a hole or a slot as fine as this sort of meaningless, because it kind of expands back into the slot. This doesn't get in. You're working with rubber or something at that scale, which is why I don't like it, because it's not a defined, at these tiny sizes, it's not a defined slot that you can do on knowing where it is, or the string sitting in the right place and so on. I mean, whinge, but anyway, I don't like it. I will get there with this damn thing. Say that. So we're still early on in this one, and there's quite a bit to do. Now, looking at this, I can see this slot is slightly ragged. I don't wish it to be. I need it to be straight. Awesome. Yeah. Nearly there. That you actually want out there. That's good. Stop on that door. Right, those are the top 3. Now we do the bottom 3. The opposite way round. Doesn't really matter. I do sometimes do base ones first. Doing the same process. Working out this time, and then work from the. In this case, it's at 26. These are. I find these a bit easier to work because they're much bigger, and you can actually see the slot, and you know where it is. And the first few cuts, I'm just going on the shadow and the gap, so I'm eyeballing it, and I can tell that it's still too much. And then as it gets closer, I'll put the gauge on it. Yeah. Again, trying to keep everything much playing tension. That's one of the biggest catch-outs that can get you when you're doing this, is to forget and run it at the less than the playing tension. And what will happen is that it will trick you, and basically the string will catch part way down. I'm just getting on that and the gap, and you think it's all the way down, and to keep the cuts, and then you put it under the correct tension, and the tension then pulls it all the way down to the actual bottom of the slot, which is by now too deep, and you're on the fret. Getting there. Okay. Nearly there. As to what angle, it's kind of intuitive. Playing, you tend to. We're very close now. You tend to find an angle that you do consistently, time and time again. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's some angle and you can repeat it consistently. Okay, stop there, I think. I can remember that from the sort of the idea of consistency from years ago, when I used to do archery for a bit, and one of the things you learn straight away is it doesn't really matter where your arrows hit, so long as you hit the same place every time. And so achieving consistency was really important first, because once you achieve consistency, you can't that you were doing the same thing every time, and then all you had to do was then change one bit of that to try and get on target. And usually it was as simple as adjusting your sight consistently. So long as you were doing the same thing every time, then all you had to do was make your sights kind of accommodate that, and you'd hit the gold. Because there's nothing about archery. It's not about who win are the ones who can see the gold target better, or they aren't the ones who can eyeball the centre of the target and point their arrow tip at it best. Because it's not like that. The people who can win are the ones who miniaturize the variables in what they do. And once they've absolutely standardized what they do each time, then they can repeat it, and they can adjust their tackle accordingly to make it hit the gold. And it's amazing. It's a very different. It's quite was revealing some lights kind of insight, actually, because before you kind of understand that, you sort of think that they're the world champion a million times better at pointing bow at the target than you. And what actually the world champion is a million times better at doing is doing exactly the same thing every time in a controlled and repeatable fashion to the target. This one struggling a bit now. It's got a certain depth, then it doesn't want to cut, it wants to bind. And say if it was bone, it wouldn't be doing that. Bone sort of creates a clean channel as you go down, so I can add it. So I'm going to stop there, which means I'm going to go back in a minute to just do a tweak on the. In fact, I'll go back there. Do a tweak on the D string, which is just a little high there. It's really warm and steamy in here. Just a tiny fraction more controlled. Repeat. This one. Yes. And then. Okay, that's good. Doing. Yep. And the final one, low E. going to go back. That one comes off quite easily. E string. And away we go. Sweet. Difficult to get there. Ring back. Easy to get it off. Not far. Spring back on. Good. Right. Go tune off there. Good, right, get something else happening now. Right, so slap this off. I'm going to paint all the, move out these out of the way, tidy up, paint the frets all black, tune them up again and get on with the fret leveling, ding, ding, ding. And then once that's done, we'll take all the strings off finally, clean everything up, do the fretboard markers if we're going to do them, if it's viable, and then take care of the surrounds. I'm not keeping an eye on the time exactly, so I need to have a look in a minute. Okay, what am I looking for? Pen. Marker pen. Right. What is the time? Time is, oh Christ, 3.5 hours. Should be right. Okay. So now coming to the business of fret leveling, does this guitar strictly need fret leveling? Yes or no? Well, yes, if you want to have it as low an action as we've got it here, and yes, if you want to clear up all the wear marks that we've got on the frets or across this neck, which has got quite a lot of wear, so it's been played a lot. So sometimes the decision to fret level is a combination of two things. Because technically it will improve the clarity of the notes so that they all play at a nice low action, and combined with the benefit that it will clean up with the wear marks and give you a sort of fresh guitar experience. It's a sort of double benefit. Sometimes there is no wear, but the frets are really uneven, so it's all about making it play full stop. In this case, it's a mixture of the two. Should be right. Yeah. To this, which is okay. Played a lot. It doesn't need to be perfectly in tune. It's just about having it under correct tension. Wrong button. Play at an there we go. Right, that's it. Okay, so let's get the fret leveling gizmos out. Get this so it's out of the way. Fret leveling gizmos. Here we are. Fret leveling tools. And stuck into that because it takes a while anyway. And we have everything. Okay, so first of all, sorry about this video, camera angle, whatever. It doesn't really improve, does it? Yeah, so mixture of audio. I noticed on the video from yesterday I didn't have as much of whiteboard in it as before, which is good. It's probably better to keep it away from that. There's no point showing loads of that. Okay, let's call that our midpoint marker. Okay, and now before I go any further, just take this off with some tape so I know where I'm aiming for. Pardon me. That won't even stick. Well, nice one. Why not? Stick, damn it. Right. Okay, so the game now is to this thing to, and I've lost the bloody thing. Okay, the bar, the rod, the truss rod to the curve in the neck, and to do that, a Allen key, which is over here, out of the way. Yeah, stuck in. Right. Okay, so basically I lay it down first on the left hand end and down on the rest of it, and I just move it and I see whether it touches. So if it doesn't, and the middle one isn't being touched, then I bend the rod even more until the middle one is not only touched but it moves like it does now. If it's too much, it'll touch first here, and then secondly here, and I'll hear it as a double click, feel it as a double click, but this is spot on. So once I've done that, take my little markers off, drop off the first string, which is under tension, and start of fret leveling under gravity. So there's no downward force really, just holding on to the bar, and it's leveling the fret up with the curve that's in the truss rod that matches the curve that's in the neck. Now what I can do is just do it for a second or two and then stop, and it's leveling all the way across, which is great, and it's leveling all the frets, so I can tell I've got the actual I've got the curve exactly right. If it was just cutting at the ends, then I may still be too straight on the bar, on the rod, and I might need to curve it a bit more. And if it's only doing the middle, then it may be that I'm too curved, and I'm need to flatten the truss rod out. But I'm all simultaneously, and they're all fairly even, which is what I expect. So there's one low end here which isn't being cut at all, and a couple of low ones here. But mainly it tells me that my kind of assessment tells me what I knew, which is this fretboard's very level. But it's taking a little bit more than others, which means it's just ironing touch. And it's also, I can see where it's quite got to the bottom, or it'll touch there yet. And so it's a mixture of, I want to get level, but I also want to just take out where the grooves as well. Partly why I'm doing this. It's a kind of mixture of improving the smoothness of the frets, so the levelness. So what I can afford to do, because there's a fair bit of life in the frets, they're not worn down dangerously low or anything, I can afford to keep going a bit to a point where I'm pretty sure that first of all truss my frets are level, so that when I remove this guide, drop the string back into its slot, I'm pretty sure that it's laying all the way up that neck. I've got will play beautifully clearly, and I can see the bulk of the marks in the E strip are gone. Okay, so that's done. Now I just move that again, and no, I don't move it off again. Sorry, my mistake. Put that one back, and I'm going to lift out the B, drop it into the G slot. Painful under tension, but it needs to be. And I'm going to use the same setting for the B slot now, and I'm just using my fingers to guide, to guide the bar, which to go up and down the B slot, because it's clearly the place where I'm interested in making sure you level the place where the string hits the frets. But also you've got to remember that the frets, the outputs are way across, and they need to work outside of that thin strip as well. So we make sure that we do all the way across that sort of gap that belongs to the B string in this case. Okay. Now I can see now that some of these grooves are still there, and I want to compromise between getting the grooves as much as possible and levelling the frets so that they play as well as possible, without wearing off the life of the frets too much. Now I can do it by a mixture of feeling these grooves and see that they're now fine enough that the sanding process would probably remove the last traces of them. So I can stop and I'll do my playing test, and that's what's the real advantage, by the way, of this method. That real advantage is that we can stop play the guitar. Now doing that revealed that still a tiny buzz there, and because this is a well-made guitar neck, I'm expecting a lot of it to guide, right? And by that I mean to guide, first of all, I've set the action really low for electric guitar, so it's a millimetre, plays 24th fret, and about 1.2 low fret, millimetre at the high E, and not that much more at the low E. That is a pretty ambitious action for a guitar, an electric guitar. But I've chosen that because this is a well-made neck, and the frets are across that very level. So it's expecting a lot of it, and so it's just ambitious. There you go, cured that. So, and we've got obviously the grooves pretty much are gone. There's still a hint of them, but they will go in the polishing process now. But let's say it's a judgment call. If you stop too early, you won't get rid of them, so they'll still be there at the end, albeit less pronounced than they were in the first place. Now this is now flattening out a little bit as we go down here, so I'm going to take off a tiny bit of the curve on the rod, and that's why once I get going I recalibrate each one of these strips. and it's fantastically sensitive. Different truss rods behave slightly differently, I guess, so you have to pretty much have to find one that you're comfortable using, and that's still too much. And there's no escape from the fact that learning how to use this will take a number of goes. It's a feel thing. Nobody can tell you how much to do or not do. You have to learn how it feels, and once you've got it, it is an amazing, I think it's an amazing technique. Okay, there we are. You wouldn't even been able to visually see the different amounts of turn I made on the Allen key there to get this right. And here we are now doing the G track. So you can see this method is not quick, but it's beautifully accurate, and it has the added advantage of allowing you to only take off the minimum you need to achieve what you're aiming for, which is an action that the action that you want plays well, and in doing so you remove the wear anywhere on the frets as well as a sort of bonus. Now, the other thing about this method, by the way, is obviously, first of all, it's slightly more accurate for some reasons that I go into on various videos, but I'm not going to go into again now. It's slightly more accurate than doing it with any other method. It's slightly more accurate. I'm just going to recalibrate this. Slightly more accurate. That's a benefit. Second benefit is you can stop and play it to see if you need to go anymore, or whether it's achieved the level that you need. And also it lets you constantly check and recalibrate what you're doing. The other thing is it allows me to do, if this is the case here, and probably is, I haven't checked, I've forgotten, I looked in the past when I did previous Chapmans, but it's quite, in fact not quite, it's the only method of fret leveling that respects the compound radius, if this is in fact what the guitar has. And it does so because it's doing the leveling in thin strips, which when you cut a cross section in this direction, the radius difference between a tiny 3mm strip that this is working on is no different when you look at it long ways, like a little slice. Now if you did it with a block, a wide block, that cuts in sort of 2 centimeters sometimes, that's too wide and it won't respect a compound radius. If you do it with a radius block, sorry, if you did it with a beam, it's usually too wide. If you do it with a block, it absolutely can't deal with a compound radius, and in fact a radius block always imposes its radius onto the neck, whether you like it or not. So that isn't an ideal situation. So this thin truss rod approach is the only fret leveling approach that allows you to deal with the compound radius in a way that respects that radius and doesn't alter it. Now I'm looking at, there's a fairly deep groove here, and it's going to give me some decision making points, a choice point. Oh God, if I can get this bloody string out. The question here is, do I carry on chasing? A little bit more to do there. Do I carry on chasing this groove out? So what I really need is I need a little piece of string that I can just lift up. You know what they say about human beings? We're the reason why we're preeminent on the planet. I know. The arguments about destroying our environment are off to one side. But the reason why we're considered preeminent is because we're tool users. Look, there you go. Proof of that. So, can't be bothered cutting my fingers apart anymore. Yeah, so this is the only method that respects the compound radius, and which is another reason why I use it. So lots of good reasons to use it. Now, in a way, it's interesting that this neck had pretty level frets, but obviously we're working a bit harder now to get rid of these grooves, which is a sort of detrimental part of the guitar. I don't want to go too far, so I'm going to compromise. Oh yes, I'm with a simple system now. Yes! Right, we know it plays because it was almost perfect before. But I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let the grooves, I'm going to let the sanding process take out the remainder of any grooves. And after that point, if there are still some in there, we're going to choose to live with it, because it's just a trade-off. Do we want to take fret metal off all of the frets on this guitar in order to take out some small grooves? Is it absolutely necessary? Do the grooves affect the playing of the guitar? If not, if they're just visible but they don't yet get in the way of the guitar's function, and we don't want to sacrifice playing life. We don't want to sacrifice playing life of the frets for something that is purely cosmetic, or mainly cosmetic. Right, get in there, you. This is being slightly thrown out of whack by the fact that these are sitting on these brass nuts are currently sitting on the paper fret markers. I mean, it's a whisker of a difference, but these sort of tolerances, it is actually a difference. So I'm going to go with that, but I wish I wasn't sitting on paper. Oh, I do like this system so much better. Why didn't I invent that 400 setups ago? Anyway, so here we go. Off into the D strip. Again, it's good when you use the marker pen, you can pretty quickly see where your fret indentations are. They show up as black marker when everything else is getting shined up and cut up with the sandpaper. And that also shows you up your flat spots as well. So remember, we're listening first and foremost to playability. That's our primary aim. Secondly, then the cosmetics, or the fret grooves. Not bad. Well, we're not in a territory of too much grooves now, so I'm not going to go any further than that. No point. We haven't got any cosmetic grooves to get rid of, and we're really focusing now on playability of the strings. That's good again. So it's the same curve on the same radius. No, relief. Same amount of relief. So many words. Now we're doing the A track. The other thing is that we can afford to leave some unevenness in this neck, in the frets. So we may finish up this with some black areas still on here, and actually that doesn't really matter so long as the unevenness that it represents is below the level of the action that we've chosen. So that's why being able to check it every now and then by playing it is really important in this method, because we can just say, right, it plays well, we don't need to chase any more levelness than that. We're not aiming for some idea of some perfect notion of levelness. A little bit more on this A. Yeah, so we're not doing it just for the sake of being able to say, yeah, we've got 100% level frets at the end of it. We're doing it to make it play at a certain action, and that's all we're really bothered about. So I'll keep on leveling until it plays cleanly, and then we can move on to the final E strip. A little bit of string, a new innovation in my technique. Pretty much there. I'm just going to do the E now. God, that's so simple. Oh, I need to go the other way really to clear everything out. Right. So, on the final slot of the day, just make sure it plays nicely. Usually the least problem of this last E string, and mainly because it doesn't wear as much as everything else, so we don't have great grooves. Most people's techniques use the higher strings, so we don't have too much in the way of grooving to get rid of. Okay, put it back on, try it out, and then we can move on. Good, we are done. Fret leveled. Okay. Precision fret leveled. Let's not underplay it. Okay, so here's the fun bit. Let's get all these strings off and bin them because they've done their service. And the next part of this now is the decision point. We've got quite a few big deal things to do. We've got, do we go ahead and install the fret markers? And if I'm nervous, it's because I've not done them on a guitar, somebody else's guitar, and it just feels mega. But being careful, calm and logical, there's no reason at all not to do it. And of course I've done some experiments, so I know how it works and that it works. So, strings off. Now before I clean the fingerboard now, I'm going to make that decision on go or no go when it comes to, don't like that, it's gripping the string. That's what I don't like about your damn tusk. Yeah, go or no go on drilling. But we've got to do some drilling to do the surrounds anyway, so just being nervous about drilling somebody else's guitar. Remember, did somebody's Taylor baby, put a microphone in it like in mine, and just despite having done it, you know, before, the whole thing of drilling somebody else's guitar and drilling in this case, a quarter or half an inch hole in it, it just feels wrong. Okay, so I'm going to switch off for a minute while I have a moment of personal crisis and 5 minutes of downtime to consider what's going on, where we're at, just a reality sense check, I suppose, make sure I know what I'm doing with everything, and I'll be back with you. Okay, so Scarysville. I've marked up the markers prior to doing any of the other cleaning. I've marked up the surrounds for the, forget that, surrounds for the pickups. and established that with the routing that exists on these things, there's no way those are going to work as lifting covers, so they're just going to work as cosmetic covers. In order to make them work as lifting covers, we'd have to route some more holes down further down. These are set at the height they are set at by pretty much just by virtue of being fixed flat against the body of the guitar. Not sure what this one's on a spring, this one's not. That's fixed, so I don't know how that works. That one's got some adjustment, but this one doesn't. Weird. But anyway, they're gonna. I've marked out the holes for that as well. So, having marked the holes out on here, I'm now going to remove a couple of layers of paper which I used to get things marked out, and the holes now are basically marked through. These it shows actually how far off centre the original dot markers were. But there we go. That's what happens when you do things by eye sometimes, or in a hurry. But anyway, they were only cosmetic. I mean, stick-on things. Some of them were spot on. You can see that the little punch goes right in the centre of some of them, and not in others. Okay. So I need to get all of these bits off. There we go. Hey? Yeah, no, I've got the punch mark there. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Centre point. I've put them centred halfway between the remaining centres. So, okay, so the scary bit now is going to be to drill these out to fit the thing. But I've started, so I'll finish. And I'm going to drill these out with a Dremel. The other one I have to use the full-size drill for. So I'm going to get off because A, it'll be noisy, and B, it's scary. So I want to just do it slow-paced, and then I've got to get. Once I've got those things drilled and done, then I can speed up again and get on with the whole business of re-craning these frets, cleaning everything up and getting it out of the way. So what we're going to end up with is some very attractive abalone dot markers. They're all a certain thickness, so I've got my drill kind of configured to drill down to that thickness, and then we'll do a little bit of glue in there. Like I said, I'm going to do this off camera. It's going to be handheld, so it's not going to be, it doesn't have to be 1,000,000,000% vertical. I could do it in the drill thing, but the problem with that is that it's lost its depth gauge anyway, and the tests I did this morning worked perfectly well by doing it with hand. Also, I don't want to take the neck off, having already configured everything for neck on setup, and I prefer to do it that way. So having done this, I'm now going to get this out of the way and do myself the drilling by hand, and we'll be ready. Okay, see you in a minute. Woo! Well, after terrors of getting this done, I have drilled the holes and they're all great and everything's going fine, and what I'm just doing now is just cleaning off any lip on these things. Just a little tiny bit of some of this glue from the previous thing. I just want to make sure there's no sticky up bits of stuff. I'm going to clean it off anyway, but it's just a bit of a sort of light scrape through, just to get rid of any burrs, and then I'll obviously clean this all out with naphtha. It's looking good, everything in place, and everything fits beautiful. Now, question is, I've trust now that everything is the right depth, and to that end I'm going to put the tiniest blob of, well, some of these are really bright. Let's have a look what we've got in the way of markers. Some of them are very, I don't want to go for the most, I'll go for the subtle ones, because the most coloured ones are on the front, and that's a bit extreme, so I'm going for the lighter, subtle side. Okay, which is quite good. I think they've been made in literally 2 parts. So I'm going to do a mixture. It has a tiny bit of what stuck to it is the word. No, it's a colour. Right, now I have to believe that this is going to fit, having done the thing. An interesting bit. Let's think about this slightly differently. Let's go cocktail stick. Yeah, I need to just do the edges with glue, so I need a bit of a surface. I'll use this, and then I'm going to gently tap them in. I was thinking. Maybe I want them clean before I do that. Hold fire. Let's have a look. It's so scary to drill into someone's guitar, as I said. I had the same feeling. I remember a customer asking me to, let's do this first. A customer asked me to chamfer their vintage V52 Telecaster, and it scared the life out of me. The thought of cutting a great chunk off that. Hello, sweetie. You just missed my terror.
Oh,
Look,
good.
look,
I'm so glad.
look. Drilled holes in somebody's guitar.
Ooh.
No, I'm going to put
They're
my...
nice holes.
Thank you for
Sorry.
thank you for sounding
No, they're very
so
neat,
surprised. I mean,
No,
so
they're very
encouraging.
neat and tidy.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so there's a bit of that. There's a bit of that. And then there is a bit of this. Done. Oh!
Glad that wasn't on the back of a boat.
Yeah. Ready? Oh, my hand, look at my hands shaking.
Oh, bless.
I've been doing this too long. And that just goes to show that isn't deep enough. Ah, that's left me looking like a monkey. Oh, shit. Quick.
Oh.
Fine screwdriver. Little very fine screwdriver out there in a hurry. Don't have to hammer this in. No, flathead. Finest.
I can't see.
The finest.
I haven't got my glasses on.
The
Is
finest
that,
flathead.
is that one?
No. The very finest. Never mind, I give up. No, I've already measured this, and this is some reason this isn't going in.
One?
No, it's not going to work. Never mind.
Sorry. Sorry, doctor.
Okay. I'm going to have to just persevere with this.
Okay. Do you want something to eat?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay.
Can't concentrate on anything.
Alright. See you later.
Alright then. Now that tells me my holes are a fraction too shallow, which is not fair because I've already tested them once and they weren't. But you don't get many goes at it, that's the problem. So I'm just going to have to file that down just ever so slightly. But what I'll do in the meantime, with the noise off, I'm just going to go and add a little bit of depth to all of these so that we don't get caught the same way. Hold on. Okay, oh blimey, it's not often I get caught short of time, but here we are. Inlays in, pretty good. One of them down there, a tiny bit lower than the others, but holes drilled, frets levelled, ready now for the next bit. So let's get cracking on because time is now short. Now it's time to mark up the frets, and I'm going to basically reshape them now from the slightly flattened frets that we've got as a result of fret levelling. Now is the time to reshape them using a concave fret crowning tool, diamond coated thing, which is very nice to use. courtesy of Stew Mac. Wherever it's gone, it's in here somewhere. That's the trouble of letting things pile up. But I'm in a hurry, so I haven't got time to tidy up between things here. I've got a lot more to do on this guitar than pretty much ever considered possible. So let's get on with it. So straight onto this thing. The idea of this is to just use the file until we get down to a thin line, thin black line ideally on the top of the fret, or just beyond, and then stop. And the idea is that if you can leave a little thin line on top whilst still rounding it off, then you preserve the relative levelness of all the frets to each other, which of course way back in the mists of time before I started doing all of this was what we were after. Now again, with the black marker pen on here, I can again see where we've got dents left. As I said, this is a compromise situation. I wasn't willing to carry on levelling all the way down to get rid of those slight wear marks. The priority was level frets to play at the action I wanted, and then as much fret life as possible, and so we'll get rid of quite a bit of that dimpling, but not absolutely all of it. But I don't think it will even be noticeable by the time I've finished in a minute with the sanding process, which, by the way, I will save you the hardship of having to listen to, because it's about 30 minutes of good old-fashioned hard work, using a variety of grades of sandpaper, running higher and higher through the grits until we get to finish off with a complete micro mesh polishing set, which is a very nice way of doing it. Now, I did have a whole load of papers already cut, but I used them up yesterday. Anyway, what we still need to do before anything else happens is to mask off the neck. Now I just oiled it after having done the inserts, so it's gonna need a bit of care to get the masking tape to stick, which isn't going to be perfect, but it'll do. And I'm going to need to cut those pieces to fit. It's just, you have to realise that if you've used oil, then the wood is not going to be conducive to masking tape sticking to it. So here we go. I'm going to get this next difficult bit out of the way, because I really want to get this thing restrung and playing, because I think time-wise it's taken obviously longer to put the dot markers in, which wasn't really something I'd originally intended to do. Anyway, let's get cracking so I can meet the deadline and not keep Luke waiting when he arrives. It's I've had to, because of some of the little bit of sanding on the dot markers and so on, they are super glued in place, but there's a bit of, sometimes you have to just sand around the edges if they stick up a bit, or they if they have a little bit of wood standing proud, and so you have to then file or sand down the fingerboard a little bit as well to get it back to its lovely smooth. But the thing is, with when you do that kind of sanding with micromesh, you can get very quickly into a very shiny situation, and actually that neck of the fingerboard actually doesn't look that great when it's very shiny. So it's really about trying to gauge the amount of, or which grit will give the best result without turning it into a shiny fingerboard that it wasn't once upon a time. Anyway, so just quickly, as I get ready for masking off this neck, it's going to need an extra bit because it's a 24 fretter, and the 24 frets always requires some extra thin stuff, so I'll get that prepared in my head. So make sure I don't chop my fingers off. I'm using very raggedy blades here. As I say, this is moving along swiftly, as they say. we'll get there. We've got an hour and 20 minutes left, so we'll just make it. But I've got to get this thing into some very thin strips as well as some varying size strips, so that we can do a 24 fret masking, because that's very close together by the time you're up at those top frets, so you need a finer grade of masking tape than before. So boring as may be, now I switch to thirds for the wider frets and then on to halves. And it's a bit mind-blowingly boring, this bit, but it does the job. So I think the thing with putting those dot markers in is it's how I do things. It's one of those things that you plan it out, do some tests, and there's always going to be a first time, and that was my first time on someone's guitar. But you get to a certain age or level of experience, I suppose, and you know that providing you take it logically and carefully, you're going to be fine. Like that, missed. And it's nice to be at that stage, because it means you can pretty much accept anything, and also be very clear when it's not something you can do. Okay, so we're back to just getting this thing masked off. This finish here doesn't take the masking tape very well either, so it's not going to stay on there very long, but it'll be enough to do this job, and it was enough to mark off the screw holes for the surrounds, the silver surrounds, which I think will look really good actually, just because they do accentuate the pickups, which on these guitars otherwise look a bit empty. And I know actually Malcolm my mate Malcolm did that on his, I think it was Ibanez actually. He'd done I think it originally came without any pickup housing, and I think he put a couple of chrome ones on as well, and probably had the same thing, that they didn't actually work as anchors for raising or lowering the pickups. They probably were just cosmetic as much as anything. Okay, so just barreling along. Once I've done this, I'll stop the camera, and then I'll just disappear and do the sanding off camera. The reason I'm not stopping it now is I'm on a run. So in the zone. I will stop it now, save you the boredom. Alright, come back when it's all polished up, frets are done and restrung and ready to go. Okay, let's just get done. Strings on, everything done. Stretching strings time. Alright, let's just get it done. We're going to check the intonation, which I presume, never like to presume too much, but I'm going to presume is accurate. So what I'm doing now is just making sure that I'm going to stretch as much out of these strings as possible. Get all the slack out, which is the number one enemy to guitar staying in tune. Time's running out. It's about 5:30 now, and Luke is coming to pick up in about 30 minutes or so. So I'm just going to make it. Well, perfectly timed in fact. more stretching. Can get as much of the slack out of the strings as is humanly possible. And once I'd realised, thank you, once I'd realised how important this stage is to making your own guitar play once you've changed the strings, and now obviously make it a really important part of the setup. And I think to be able to send a guitar out that you've sold, or maybe you're selling to someone, and for it to stay in tune from the minute it comes out of the box, it's really annoying to me, these bits. I didn't want that to happen. Solvent, propellant I should say. For it to stay in tune from the minute it comes out is brilliant. Ooh. Well, there we go. Amazing. Didn't think I was going to make it on time at one point, because especially putting new dot markers in, that was a tricky or challenging new experience. So, but as with all things, you take it really carefully, and you get there. Interestingly, these the markers are in the center point of the neck, but the strings are just slightly, where are they? Yeah, the grouping of the strings is just slightly to the left. It's interesting that. You can never, or to one side, you can't account for it really. That's weird. Where's that ruler? That's annoying. Stretch up in. Right, intonation time. Let's get the strap on. I can't remember which way round. I think it looks like it's this way round. Let's get these things on. Right. Nice funny pattern on the back. Let's turn it up. Make a noise. Switch on. Okay, so for intonation, tune to the pinged harmonic, and then just hit the 12th fret, and the note should be the same. It's actually flat. So quite a bit flat. Not so much flat. Lots flat. Quite a bit flat. So to amend this, I'm going to need to get hold of a screwdriver, make sure it fits. Is it a screwdriver driven? Oh bloody hell. Of course it's one that won't quite fit in there. Just let's try that. Yeah, that works, thankfully. Okay, so tune to the harmonic. Pretty close to the E. B's alright. G's a bit flat, so that means it's too long. So I'm going to push counterclockwise and push it forward towards the B, and it will need retuning. Still flat. Counterclockwise, pushing it forward a bit more, sharpen it or reduce the length. That's good. Same thing here. Shorten this a little bit. Oh, hang on, wrong way. Shorten this a little bit counterclockwise. Too long, so I want to shorten that. So counterclockwise again with that one. Should be about right. Counterclockwise a bit more. Good. clockwise. Get that right. Okay, we are done. Bit of stretching still to do. Right. I'll get off effects. Thank you, give me some power. Okay, we're done. End of, go and answer the front door. Okay, well, next day to end off, I just wanted to round off that last video with the Chapman ML3 because right at the end of it I discovered to my horror that the alignment of the dot markers wasn't perfect. It was just fractionally off, and partly it was a result of me making the markings with the ruler pressing on the nut and the kind of inaccuracy that you can get with a pencil wandering either way. And I was horrified, as you could probably hear in the video, to realise I'd done that, having gone through, taken so much care to get the rest of it right. And as a matter of fact, that the setup on that guitar was one of the very best I've ever done. I mean, it just plays fantastically and it sounds great as well. So you can imagine, as a bit of a perfectionist, I was completely horrified to have made that mistake. You know, on a customer's guitar, there's no two ways around it. So for your information, I obviously let Luke know straight away what I'd done. Originally he had paper markers on there, so it actually probably looked a bit better all around the paper markers, but it's not a fantastic outcome for me, and you know, to my horror, for him either. So obviously I didn't charge him for that, and you know, offered him my apologies for that. And for me it's a shame because it spoils what were three great setups. But there you go. I am the kind of person who I will learn through doing, and I could see afterwards the one thing I should have done was, once I'd made the initial marks on paper, I should have restrung the guitar. First of all, I should have made the marks with the nut off, alright, or at least mark the frets and keep the nut out of the equation, but for some stupid reason I marked the nut and then used the nut as a start point. So it's get rid of the nut or get the nut out of the equation. Big Stevie on Facebook suggested using the slotted edge, which I've got here, as a way of plonking that down and drawing a line along there. The only trouble with that is I'm not entirely convinced that this is a... Oh, you have to be sure that this thing in itself is flat in this plane. If it's bent in that plane, you'll still get the same wandering. But if you're confident it is, then that could form a useful thing to give you a mark right down on there. So that's a good idea, Big Steve. But I just know for a fact that had I not had that curve in the ruler, had I been against the frets at the highest, I mean at most, if I'd had it dead on the frets, it would have been more accurate. So my apologies to Luke, and as I say on Facebook, you live and learn. So just wanted to let you know what the outcome of that was, because I'm very transparent. I can't hide things as I go along, and it was clear. You could see right at the end of that process that I once I got the strings back on, I could see that the dots were just slightly off centre between the G and the D string, which at that point was the kind of, oh god, horror moment. Anyway, happens once, won't happen again. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and I hope it's been interesting. If you can put that bit out of your mind, everything else makes sense, including the getting the depth right and drilling the things out. I've thought about that point. If you've got a pillar drill with a very accurate depth gauge on it, you could use that. The problem with putting dot markers into an existing fingerboard rather than one that, if you're refretting something like this, is dead easy. You could drill those out or put whatever I want in there, and then of course you can re-radius those down to absolutely flush. It will flatten the dot and the glue around it, so you get a really flush thing. If you're going to do it with frets already in on somebody's guitar, then you have to get exactly the right depth, which is incredibly difficult, whether you've got a pillar drill or a hand drill. Hand drill, you can gauge the depth with a little bit of tape around the drill itself, which is what I did. And even with a pillar drill, unless you've got a very expensive one, they all have a little bit of play in them, so you never actually get exactly the same depth each time there's a flex. So you know, if you're going to do it and it's on a pre-existing neck, you may have to have a strategy for if it's slightly proud or if it's slightly sunken. What are you going to do if you've gone too far on the drill or you haven't gone far enough? Problem you've got is you can't take that dot won't go in and out too many times before it gets stuck or it gets lodged in place or whatever, and then you can't get it out. You can't hit the neck, you can't magnet it out. You could try and glue it out with something, I don't know, it's very difficult. So as always, plenty to think about, and I know, you know, some of you might have watched me doing that and thinking, oh god, don't know, you forgot to whatever, and that's just the way it is. We all make screw ups, unfortunately, and that was one of mine. So there you go, real life guitar stuff. My apologies to Luke again, and I hope he's not too bothered about that slight misalignment. I'm mortified by it, but that's because it's perfectionism ahoy down here. Okay, right, next time.